Hi, and thanks for watching this message video, and don't forget to go through the life lesson that goes with it. And for those who cannot make a Sunday, don't forget that there is a podcast of that sermon that goes along with this message video or life lesson. Today we're continuing on in our series called The Path, where we're looking at all the different things that it takes for followers to stay on the right path or to help somebody get on the right path or get back onto the right path. And to make it easier, we've turned the entire word followers into an acrostic where each letter stands for something. And so far, we've learned that faith gets us onto the right path, and obedience to God's commands is what keeps us on the right path. But we must learn God's will and intentionally lead others to do the same through service. However, developing these types of things really doesn't happen unless we have a proper fear of God. And throughout this series, I've been using Solomon, David's son, as an example of what it looks like when we do fear God and how we walk the right path, but also when we lose that fear of God and therefore walk the wrong path. Today, we're going to be covering the second O in the acrostic of followers, which stands for order or organization. And for that reason, I want to touch again on Solomon, David's son. And the reason for it is before he lost his fear of God and started walking that wrong path, he had a reputation for not only having great faith in God, but his obedience to God's commands was legendary, and his understanding or learning of those commands was obviously very, very well known. And his leadership over the Israelites was obviously a big deal. He was the king who was referred to as the one who enabled all of Israel to have their own home and their own garden. But that wasn't all he was known for. In fact, he was also known for his order or his organization. In fact, look what was said about his court. 1 Kings 10, 1-9. When the queen of Sheba heard of Solomon's fame, which brought honor to the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. She arrived in Jerusalem with a large group of attendants and a great caravan of camels loaded with spices, large quantities of gold, and precious jewels. When she met with Solomon, she talked with him about everything she had on her mind. Solomon had answers for all her questions. Nothing was too hard for the king to explain to her. When the queen of Sheba realized how very wise Solomon was, and when she saw the palace he had built, she was overwhelmed. She was also amazed at the food on his tables, the organization of his officials and their splendid clothing, the cupbearers, and the burnt offerings Solomon made at the temple of the Lord. She exclaimed to the king, "Everything I heard in my country about your achievements and wisdom is true. I didn't believe what was said until I arrived here and saw it with my own eyes. In fact, I had not heard the half of it. Your wisdom and prosperity are far beyond what I was told. How happy your people must be. What a privilege for your officials to stand here day after day, listening to your wisdom. Praise the Lord your God, who delights in you and has placed you on the throne of Israel. Because of the Lord's eternal love for Israel, he has made you king so you can rule with justice and righteousness." In this story, the Queen of Sheba represents that person who was walking the wrong path, but because of this famous faith and obedience and learning and leadership and order that Solomon possessed, she was not only so impressed with him, but that she praised God. And the truth is all of the things that Solomon was known for are the things that we are supposed to be known for now. Meaning, when a Christian or a church has a reputation of faithlessness and disobedience combined with complex beliefs and perpetual disorganization, it's hard for them to be attractive in any way. So one of the things we must grasp as followers of Jesus is that our lives must never look disorganized or disorderly or as if we are chaotic, whether that's an individual or corporately as a church. But let's look at this individually first, because if our lives aren't in order as individual followers, what we do corporately as a church won't matter. Now, believe it or not, The best way to keep our lives in order is to constantly work on our faith and our obedience, or in other words, to continually be learning and to intentionally be leading others. Or in other words, when we are constantly pursuing holiness through gaining wisdom and understanding, our lives will reflect the kind of personal order and leadership Solomon was once famous for. For instance, a couple of weeks ago, we looked at a small portion of what Solomon had written in the Proverbs, specifically Proverbs 2, but now let's look at a little bit more of what it is that he wrote. Proverbs 2, 1 through 20. My child, listen to what I say and treasure my commands. Tune your ears to wisdom and concentrate on understanding. Cry out for insight and ask for understanding. Search for them as you would for silver. Seek them like hidden treasures. Then you will understand what it means to fear the Lord, and you will gain knowledge of God. For the Lord grants wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He grants a treasure of common sense to the honest. He is a shield to those who walk with integrity. He guards the paths of the just and protects those who are faithful to him. Then you will understand what is right, just, and fair, and you will find the right way to go. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will fill you with joy. Wise choices will watch over you. Understanding will keep you safe. Wisdom will save you from evil people, from those whose words are twisted. These men turn from the right way to walk down dark paths. They take pleasure in doing wrong, and they enjoy the twisted ways of evil. Their actions are crooked, and their ways are wrong. Wisdom will save you from the immoral woman, from the seductive words of the promiscuous woman. She has abandoned her husband and ignores the covenant she made before God. Entering her house leads to death. It is the road to the grave. The man who visits her is doomed. He will never reach the paths of life. So follow the steps of the good and stay on the paths of the righteous. Solomon's primary warning was for everyone to gain wisdom or knowledge or understanding, but his ultimate goal was that through that gaining of knowledge or wisdom or understanding, that they would see what is the right path and they would walk the right path, and they would make that walking of the right path so attractive that others would be looking at them and going, "Ah, man, I want to also walk the right path like a Queen of Sheba." However, Solomon was also aware that there are people constantly trying to get us or others to walk a worldly path or the wrong path by making it appear to be so much more fun and perfectly safe, but it's not. Choosing to walk a worldly path will lead to a life of chaos, and this warning that Solomon just gave us is the same exact warning that all the rest of the apostles gave to us as well, that this is a choice. Don't make that choice to walk a wrong path and let your life turn into chaos and disorder by choosing worldly things. In fact, as an example, look what Peter wrote. 1 Peter 2:11 through 21. Dear friends, I warn you as temporary residents and foreigners to keep away from worldly desires that wage war against your very souls. Be careful to live properly among your unbelieving neighbors. Then, even if they accuse you of doing wrong, they will see your honorable behavior and they will give honor to God when he judges the world. For the Lord's sake, submit to all human authority, whether the king as head of state or the officials he has appointed. For the king has sent them to punish those who do wrong and to honor those who do right. It is God's will that your honorable lives should silence those ignorant people who make foolish accusations against you. For you are free, yet you are God's slaves, so don't use your freedom as an excuse to do evil. Respect everyone and love the family of believers. Fear God and respect the king. You who are slaves must submit to your masters with all respect. Do what they tell you, not only if they are kind and reasonable, but even if they are cruel. For God is pleased when, conscious of his will, you patiently endure unjust treatment. Of course, you get no credit for being patient if you are beaten for doing wrong. But if you suffer for doing good and endure it patiently, God is pleased with you. For God called you to do good even if it means suffering, just as Christ suffered for you. He is your example, and you must follow in his steps. As Peter said, God is pleased when you and I, for his sake, submit to all authorities for reverence of God and for them, and do so because we're trying to keep order. We're trying to keep peace. And through this submissive attitude, instead of a rebellious attitude, we maintain then an appearance of walking on a path that is attractive for other people. This is one of the most critical things that you and I can do personally as individual followers in order to keep our own lives in order, so that when we're going to other places, whether it's, say, for instance, school or a store or the bank or a roundabout or a church, it helps for us to keep our lives in order and therefore ultimately everybody else potentially in order, which is what I'm going to be talking about more on Sunday. And I hope you can join us.